A very warm welcome to Samir Agarwal, who will be speaking about latest trends in generics and biosimilars. So it's a pleasure to have him here. He is CEO and Managing Director of CSA Healthcare GmbH, based out of Germany. And basically, he has diverse roles in management, consultancy, and advisory to private equity, and to global consultancy firms in pharma healthcare. And his focus areas are mergers and acquisitions, strategy formulation and implementation, new market development, portfolio management, business planning, and launches. And for his wide range of knowledge, he is appointed as board member and profit center head, strategy and marketing head to different ventures. So it's definitely a pleasure to have him here with all his background and experience to present about the latest trends in generics and biosimilars. So Samir, very, very warm welcome.
First of all, thank you very much, Mario, for those nice words. Much appreciated. And also thanks to the Pharmacircuit team for this opportunity. So we have about 30 minutes, and it's my pleasure to speak and introduce you to some of the latest trends in generics and biosimilars. And most of it, many of these, you are already noticing day to day because we are in the same industry. So a quick start. And this slide, as you can see, is from, is by a company called Startups Insights, and they interviewed 1745, approximately 2,000 startup companies. And the top pharma trends are, of course, we are all aware, artificial intelligence, precision medicine, digital therapeutics, blockchain, etc. And why it is important for us in the generic and biosimilar industry also to look at these top pharma trends, because ultimately whatever we sell as generic or biosimilar are coming from the big pharma. And so these are the latest trends, and all of these are impacting our businesses day to day and will continue to impact. And we'll see later what we can do to support you in these areas. This is a very interesting slide by IQVIA, and they have identified these 9 top pharma trends for 2021 based on what has happened last year. So first of all, as we all know, that healthcare systems have reconfigured around the world, more focus on ICU, face-to-face visits with healthcare professionals declined, etc. The other major topic which emerged was a huge backlog of patients, especially in the critical care segment, for example, oncology, etc. And this is going to have a major impact on the way we do business, as well as generic and biosimilars business, and we will just talk about it in a minute. There were multiple launches which happened in 2020, big pharma. Nothing much changed. However, as all of you know, that many of the clinical trials got impacted. And this is likely to have an impact with respect to delay in launches of further NCEs or NBEs. Of course, price and value battleground is expected to another trend going forward. And with more pressure on healthcare systems, this is a topic which has become more and more important. We already talked in the last slide, emergence of digital health systems, because the number of healthcare visits or the visits of patients to healthcare professionals has gone down. And digital customer engagement consolidates. And in EU and UK, for example, face-to-face meetings were 30% down, and in subsequent slides, I'll also show you a little bit about US. Biosimilars takeoff is likely to be a major trend for 2021 because of healthcare pressures or price pressures, so more likely to have biosimilar usage. And biologics account for 44% of all 2019 prescription value, which will lose exclusivity in next 5 years. CNS will re-emerge as a major therapy area. In past, it has hardly grown or remained flat, but in future, it is expected to grow 3 to 5%. And one other topic also, a lot of innovation from China is expected to come in. And so these are the overall 9 trends which IQVIA has projected for 2021. Something similar has been projected by Orientation Agency, 16 trends for 2021. And you can see the contract development market will keep growing. New technology is always entering the supply chain. In addition to what you saw in the IQVIA slide, evolving commercial strategies, cost pressure and price reforms, etc. Now, let's come to US, and this slide is also from IQVIA, and what we saw in 2020 was 23% decline in institutional sales in pharmaceutical business, 19% office-based, and such a substantial increase in telehealth. So this is one of the most important takeaway from US, that substantial decline in business in pharmaceuticals. And it's a combination of all products, including generics as well as innovator, of course, innovator driven. This is also an interesting slide which shows that in 2020, in US alone, almost 1 billion diagnosis visits did not happen. And if you look at this graph, here they are showing the projected normal schedule or the number of visits, and the light blue is the one which actually happened. And you can take an example of oncology, for example. So these are the diagnosis visits gap per healthcare professional. So you can see that about 1,200 in a year or 100 in a month per healthcare professional. So if I assume 25 working days, that means almost 4 patients did not reach the healthcare professional per day, and which is a huge gap. And likewise, other areas also, gastroenterology, dermatology, anesthesiology, also surgeries, elective surgeries got postponed. So this is what happened last year. And this is the projection for this year by IQVIA in US. The gap will be substantially lower, only about 100 million, and many of the therapy areas will recover pretty well, including oncology, which will recover by about 70%. So this has created a major issue with respect to, let me remain on that slide, with respect to usage of products. This also means that in 2021, more patients will be treated to clear the backlog, plus the new patients will also come in. That means more money needs to be spent by insurance companies in US or governments in other geographies to cover these healthcare costs. And that means, and this is what you saw in the previous slides, is the projection by IQVIA that this year substantially more number of generics or substantially more business of generics and biosimilars is likely. Now let's come to some generics major trends. Of course, quality, supply, and price remain the key success factors. These largely remain unchanged. And to be successful now as well as projected in future, these 3 will remain the main criteria for success or key success factors. With respect to trends, increasing market fragmentation has happened over the last few years. And I have used in this presentation data only from public domain. So that's why I'm quoting the 2019 figures, which are in public domain. And if we look at globally, top 10 generic companies have about 21% market share or revenue share. as compared to 28% in 2014. So there is substantially more fragmentation, which goes not in favor or goes against the generic industry because there is more fragmentation. Yes, one may also look at it in a positive way that smaller companies can also enter, but this also brings in price pressure. 90% of US purchasing is from top 3 wholesalers, and this dropped the prices substantially in US from 2014 to 17, and then it was stabilizing afterwards. As we all know that there has been increased scrutiny by regulatory agencies, especially US FDA, which has also caused increased scrutiny by EMA and other agencies. And this has led to drug shortages and supply source burden, especially for APIs. More than 25% of small molecule generic business value comes from 4 therapy areas. And this, of course, is very important, a positive trend as well, especially for those companies which are working in pain management or in oncology, etc. Another major topic, which is a trend and will continue, is expected to remain a trend, is advent of specialty generics, as well as added value generics, or what we value added generics, or what we often call VAMs. And yes, in Europe, we have a challenge of getting higher prices for VAMs, but in other geographies, especially in US, we are able to get higher prices. But what is interesting to note here is that specialty generics contributed 12% of the global generics market, and it was also growing more than 10%. And value-added generics contributed 17% of the global generic market. So global generic market in 2019 was estimated to be approximately $250 billion by IQVIA, and out of that, 17% value-added generics and 12% specialty generics. So when you hear more and more these buzzwords, I think it is important to understand that these are growing and becoming more important. So this also becomes an important part of our discussions when we decide portfolio for a company, etc. Now let's have a quick look at biosimilars. And in case of biosimilars, this was the picture as per Deloitte in 2014. So you see that the payer assessment or an excess, as well as regulatory environment in US was pretty poor in 2014. Not many regulatory approvals were happening. In Europe, we had an established system and we were approving the products, and access was also high, but prescriber acceptance and patient acceptance was still medium. And likewise, in other countries, you can see, depending on where you are joining from today, you can see that in your respective markets, situation was pretty different in 2014. But what has happened between 2014 and now is substantial change, and there is better acceptance of biosimilars. There are well-defined regulatory pathways in US, and multiple regulatory approvals are happening in BRICS and other countries as well, which are the emerging major markets. So let's take an example of US. What IQVIA has projected that it is expected to have launches and uptake are likely to increase overall significantly to 16 to 36 billion by 2024. So in 2019, the market of biosimilars in US was 5.2 billion. 2020, it is close to 8 or 9 billion, and it is going to double or triple in next 4 years. And this is coming through 2 important underlying reasons. One is expiries of these patents, some of these patents. And second is what I explained earlier in the previous slides, where we mentioned that more price pressure, more number of treatments this year and the following year to cover the backlog. So that's why more biosimilars getting used as well. So staying with biosimilars, one of the last slides I have is that in general, we know the benefits and risks with biosimilars, which is always the case, and we are all aware of these. In the last year, as well as the future trends, the shifts towards targeted and biological products is expected to continue. So there will be growing demand for biologics and high cost, high value drugs, which basically means more biosimilars will come in, which we also saw in the previous slide. Biosimilars still continue to have lower competition vis-a-vis small molecules or generics. This is still an evolving market, which basically still is in formative stage. It is not the same as generics, where we can say that value-added medicine generics or specialty generics are in formative stage, late stage of formation. Biosimilars is still in somewhere in the middle to sort of early late stage of formation. So it's still evolving market. Now, one of the topic still remains a barrier for biosimilars is interchangeability or substitutability, which in my opinion will get more and more addressed as we go forward in the coming years. In Europe especially, this topic has more or less get resolved, but US, as we understand, is still a challenge, and in some other geographies as well. So now let me spend a few minutes on about CSA Healthcare, the company I manage, as well as some of our alliance partners, what we offer. So first of all, our clients have tremendous knowledge, and they are having all these pieces of the puzzle, and they are pretty capable. And we also are one of the piece of the puzzle, and our job is to bring it together to a logical conclusion with respect to a strategy or execution of a strategy. That's all what we believe we do. So we combine the know-how of our clients as well as our know-how to come to some conclusion. The areas where we work on are business and market entry strategy. It could be therapy area strategy or a geography. And we specialize in identifying the opportunities in these areas, defining the strategy, go-to-market strategy, and then also help in execution of the strategy. For example, a company is interested in finding what would be the right therapy area which can fit in their structure. Then we identify the therapy area, and then we advise them which products they should have and how they can have it, whether they should develop them themselves or license them in or acquire them, and similarly for portfolio strategy. In case of M&A, we work quite a lot in supporting our clients, whether private equity firms and others, to take up commercial due diligence and similar topics, business integration, interim management. And then we also have some additional services, including licensing of NCEs and value-added medicines and complex products, etc. These are some of our alliance partners. Especially today, you will meet one of our partners, Laurent Dicori, who runs Blue Jet Consulting, and we work together on multiple projects, and we support our clients together on these projects. We also have in our panel Cruz Lopez of About Dots, a company which specializes in digital topics. And then Anders Kruger is our partner supporting topics related to finance and finance CFO advisory, etc. Especially CSA and Blue Jet Consulting, we provide our joint expertise to clients on multiple topics, especially go-to-market strategy, portfolio and market entry strategy, launches and commercialization, and M&A. So this is what we jointly offer. Now, how we can help the participants of Pharmacircuit and others, and this is what I would spend couple of minutes now. So as you all know that for business strategy, the key success factors include corporate strategy, which markets we should enter in, which products we should have if we are talking of biosimilars and generics, what should be our IP strategy, what kind of prioritization we should have, because every product is sometimes, or every plan is not possible to be funded. And then we have to take some make or buy decisions. With respect to the market trends, which I explained in the previous slides, we see that especially more, and all of you are also aware that many of the companies are especially revisiting these strategies and adapting them. So for example, corporate strategy, there are multiple new areas which have emerged. There is a need to adapt or adjust the short-term and mid-term strategy in all likelihood. Most probably, it might not be required to adapt or adjust the long-term strategy, but this is an area where we can help our clients to work together with them and help them adapt their short and mid-term strategy. While of course, for some clients, we also, in general, work on all three phases of the strategy. Other thing which is very important right now is that the importance of markets with respect to each other has changed or is changing. During the pandemic period, for example, we saw that some of the products got quicker approval in UK as compared to the European Union. Many of the products got quicker approval in countries like China, Turkey, and US as compared to Europe, or for example, Japan. So these have also given us some situations where our clients have to reprioritize their funding of various projects and prioritization of countries. And this is a general overview, what is the difference in different countries, and you are all aware of that. But what I'm trying to say here is this is an area where we think we can support our clients substantially in this phase based on these latest trends which I explained earlier. And lastly, with respect to portfolio, we also know that, which I mentioned earlier, that it is quite impossible in certain ways to fund every project. So with the changes in the dynamics of the market, with these new trends emerging, and latest estimates what is going to happen and what is not going to happen in 2021 and beyond, we need to reprioritize some of the projects and portfolio. And this is an area where we excel in, we believe, and we can support our clients. So that's more or less what I had to say today, present today.
Hello, thank you, Samir, for the nice insights. We still have 5 minutes for questions, and we have a couple of them. So basically, I was quite curious to see that in the IQVIA data that there was a trend to increased market fragmentation. So I was wondering about that, because I always had the impression that there's a lot of concentration on certain manufacturers, especially for public tenders. So where do you think that this fragmentation comes from?
Yeah, no, so that was a data from past till 17 to 19. The top players, global players in generics, their share reduced overall. That's the message over there. But I was that was also showing that this, because the top players had less market share, there are more number of players in the market now in generics. So it can be looked at in two ways. One is that there is space for newer generics to enter, but at the same time, what I was also trying to say that because there are more number of generics, that means that there must be price reduction, because when you have more competition, the price reduces. And that's the reason I wanted to link it to the other part, which was there is more focus now on specialty generics or value-added generics, because that can give you higher pricing and more market shares, most probably. So that's how I look at it. So if I
Thank
am a
you.
company doing only vanilla generics, which I call what I mean by vanilla generics is just a simple formulation with one-to-one copy, where there are multiple players, definitely there's a lot of challenge. And this is where we have to adapt our strategy as an organization or as a company, that which other new kind of products we can go in where the prices are also high and we can potentially get higher market shares.
Thank you. And we had another question coming in. So due to the ongoing COVID research grants, which are priority, how do you see that grants in other biosimilar works and biosimilar programs will be affected by that?
Grants, that means
so basically so as there's a lot of support and support mechanism in the research of COVID-19 currently, so how do you see this will be affecting the number of other biosimilars in research in the near future?
Yeah, so I think this is a tricky question for me to answer, because I have not seen any specific grants getting companies getting grants to do biosimilar research, because getting biosimilars to the market will still take few years, because it's not something which can be brought into market very quickly. So I am not aware of any specifics in this area, so I not will be able to answer this. But what is happening with respect to grants is, for example, I heard the other day from one of the colleagues that for US market, the government provided money to set up new injectable facilities because there is a shortage in the of the injectable capacity. Similarly, some specific portfolio or the therapy areas, there are some grants which are coming, but not in the generic space. It is more towards new drug research.
Thank you. And another question, perhaps shortly, the last one, I think. How do you see this Chinese innovation? This were also displayed in the IQVIA data. So I think this is also quite interesting for all of us in the generic space, that we were used to work, of course, with Indian manufacturers of finished dose products in generics, but also, of course, a lot of things are happening in China. How do you see that?
Yeah, so I mean, we all have noticed that there are multiple biotechnology companies emerging in China right now. And for example, BeiGene is one company. And then they have tremendous amount of support from their government to do new biological research and new product research. The government of China is also right now promoting more, I mean, they are in a way discouraging registration of imported generics. They are encouraging registrations of imported innovative drugs or differentiated products. And the same is what they are doing with respect to local production. So a climate in certain ways for pushing innovation has been set in. I mean, there are multiple theories about how China functions, and there are skeptics also about the way things happen in China. But we have to accept that China has progressed substantially with respect to innovation, because China was, like most of the Asian countries other than Japan, were not known to be innovation-driven countries. And right now, in last 5-7 years, there have been substantial investments in that space. And all the industry analysts have this opinion, most of them, that this trend will continue, and we will most probably see many new drugs potentially also coming out of China in the coming decades.
Thank you, Sami, for these insights. So there is a couple of other questions in the chat that perhaps afterwards you could answer, and we'll definitely also be looking forward to connect in the networking sessions. And as shown in the agenda, we already have arrived to the time of the next session, and we will disconnect for a moment and then be back with the next session. So thank you, Sami, again for joining, and see you soon in the networking.
See you. Thank you.